Hey guys, my name is Martyna. I am a PR director at Serotonin. I also look after comms for ETHWarsaw. But I spent around 8 years in PR. I've been working at different agencies, different sizes. Before Web3, I was actually looking after tech clients and fintech. So that gave me a lot of exposure into different businesses, different setups. And I have always been in PR, but I've been working with companies who would have their PR function plugged into different departments. I would work with CMOs and CEOs. Sometimes, PR would be directly responding to a CMO, sometimes marketing lead. So that kind of gave me a perspective into how those different departments can be structured, what they care about, and how I can kind of be more creative in terms of what I can do as a PR person to really supercharge the bottom line of the business. So hence why the presentation today, I wanted to make it something that's, no matter of your setup, no matter how big is your team, if you're trying to do some PR, there is a different ways you can kind of make sure that it actually generates revenue and have a real impact on your business. So here's quick agenda. This is what we're gonna go through. What is PR good for anyway? Why do we actually need it? And what's kind of, how it can be used within the organization. Then crafting effective brand messaging. I want to talk about that because I think it's like a foundational thing that you should do at your company. Just really get serious about your brand. And then integrating PR with other revenue generating activities. Where does it sit? And actually question, how many of you guys are in marketing? Okay, most of you, good. Business development, any BD people here? One person, good. And sales? You could say so, right? That's the thing as well, like marketing, BD, sales, like very often those roles kind of blend within the organization. I think that's what we want as well, right? And then I want to quickly touch on measuring PR impact, and we're gonna just wrap up by just kind of concluding points. So what is PR good for anyway? I think there are 4 key areas that PR is like really invaluable tool in terms of getting visibility. We know that if visibility can be like a real growth killer. I think when it comes to PR and marketing, that's really like a matching exercise, right? Like people would buy your product only if they knew about you. So we often say that, well, once they know about us, once they see us, they actually would love what we do, right? And sometimes marketing does a really good job in like creating all this collateral, creating all this content and kind of bringing people on board. But the visibility, so kind of cutting through the noise is the tricky part. So that's what you can address with PR. Second is credibility, and I think in the Web3 space that's super important because I think all of us have been burned by just this idea of key influencers who've been paid to say certain things, and then we are like, oh no, they lied to us. So it's really nice to have like a third party that's credible vouching for us. So we have like a, as a marketing people, we're like, look, we are great. This is our product. Look how great it is. And then we have evidence elsewhere. So for example, well, CoinDesk also thinks that, and this reporter from this publication writes about us. So it's like gives you like this third party credibility, which is really important. Then reputation, that's another one. I think people ask me like, oh, well, like how PR, like we need new business and we need to make money and we don't want to spend on PR. And I'm like, well, reputation and issues crisis management is really important actually, because that's kind of protects your revenue streams, right? So you want to make sure that you have that in place. And this could be set up by marketing from smaller teams, but it would be nice to have a comms person kind of help you with your initial strategy. And when the time comes that you're prepared and you make sure that your response to a crisis doesn't cost you a business or doesn't take your kind of prospects from warm to being cold again, right? So I think that's really important when we talk about the revenue. And the last is branding, last but not least. And again, people think when they say branding, they think about the look of the brand, and I think there's much more than that. And it's not just a buzzword, although I know we've been around for a few cycles, and it could be perceived as a buzzword, but it isn't. It's real kind of tool for growth if you know how to use it. Oh yeah, I did that. We're gonna focus on those 3 things today. So that's, because reputation and crisis management, like trust me, that's another kind of whole presentation. We don't wanna go there. So those 3 things will be what I'm gonna talk to you about. Crafting effective brand messaging. Yeah, that's something I want to talk about before we kind of break it down to our different departments and talk about how kind of PR can help you with BD sales marketing. So I said brand messaging because I don't want to call it PR messaging. I also don't want to call it key messages, key PR messages, which probably you guys seen being thrown around a little bit. It's, hello guys, no worries. Yeah, it's brand because your messaging shouldn't be, it's not for PR to use, it's for the whole company to use. It's rules that you want to live and breathe into the whole organization. And I think that's also what's really important, right? Like once you narrow down what your key messages are, you want the whole brand to kind of be singing the same song, be unified on that front, right? Strong, consistent messaging is the glue that ties all of your efforts together, and I really do believe that this is true. So here are a couple of things when it comes to crafting effective brand messaging. And I don't know if this is gonna resonate with you guys, but I think clarity and consistency is really, really important. And as a marketers, we all know like it's about repetition. And after a while, kind of repetition is what makes the brand identity really kind of strong. People associate you with certain words, with certain looks and stuff like that. So I think like it's really important to focus on those things. And kind of the biggest challenge I see when I work with, especially early stage companies, is that they really struggle with narrowing down their USPs. So it's hard for them to prioritize. And you guys know, like when you meet someone or when you use a new product or a new feature, the chances are that you're only gonna remember one thing about that person or about that product. It's really hard to remember 3 things, right? So it's the same. And I think people make assumption that when we think about, oh, what do our customers want? Like you probably have the answer within yourself. Like what is appealing to me? Like what language do I speak? Like how I kind of, what resonates with me? And I think that kind of prioritization and then making sure that your pitch is really kind of clear and simple is really important. One exercise I like to do with my clients, I ask them to like, you know, try to pitch me something and then, or try to pitch something to their like member of family and ask them to rephrase it. And their member of family probably who doesn't know about the business much, they will pick up like 1 or 2 things that they kind of took away from this. And that's a really kind of sense check in terms of like, oh, is that how I wanted? Is that how I is that how my pitch came across? Like maybe I should use different words, different associations. Maybe that's not quite right. Or maybe you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly it. That's really cool. Interesting that you pick out on this and not on that. So that's kind of really helps with like narrowing down what's important for you as a brand. And then really in terms of tips, like it's really what it brings. It's not how it works, but what it does. So how it benefits your customers, right? So I think focus on benefits and outcomes of your product, not just the technical details, which I know is very, it's sometimes very hard because we're passionate about technology. We build the technology, we know it's great, it's been proof checked and community checked and vetted, and it's really all exciting. But I think for when you wanna really nail down and have a knife edge message, you need to strip it down to simple language. And yeah, lastly, I think on that point is make sure you use it across, once you have those key messages, I said that before, make sure everyone kind of knows it and you guys use it across the whole organization, and everyone feels kind of comfortable with it, because again, you wanna sing the same song, you wanna kind of, once you introduce your brand, you want people to already have ideas. And if if your salesperson introduce brands in one way and BD in another way, and then your PR try to do some talk to media about your brand in again different way, that's quite really becoming really hard to pin down. Okay, what is the one thing or voice that you do? So I think that's also really important. And this one, I get asked about this a lot, and it's tricky. And I don't want you to think of PR as just as a department. I think it's more of a floating function, especially if you're at the beginning of your journey. If you're at a small company, maybe you're just bootstrapping, maybe you're a startup, and maybe you don't have enough departments to actually even place it somewhere, right? So it's a floating function and can help you with different activities, with different campaigns at different points. When we talked about crisis briefly, obviously that's where your PR person would be speaking to CEO directly. When we talk about product campaigns, that's probably closer to marketing or sales people, right? When we talk about doing some kind of approach for prospects, that's where PR sits with BD and kind of try to find the creative ways of engaging those partners. So it's try to sprinkle PR, where you can, and get creative in terms of would my comms person be able to help with this? And I can talk to you about how in a second. But yeah, it's like a dynamic force as opposed to just a department that sits somewhere in silo. User acquisition funnel, you guys probably seen this 8 million times. It's nothing new here, but I wanted to kind of touch on this because it always looks pretty much the same. Potential users attract, engage, convert, and then we have new users. So we can't really skip any of those stages, and that's how kind of those different departments usually influence those customer journeys. And that's an ideal world will be a customer journey. We do some PR and marketing, we attract them, and then from there, marketing does that, do they magic, and they engage them, and then pass it over to sales, and sales convert them, and we have new users. Obviously, that's a lot can happen between kind of attract and engage and convert. So it's never a straight line, and I do understand that, and I want to kind of show you that PR can actually, it doesn't have to always sit here, although this is where it naturally fits, but it actually can help along the lines and actually can be instrumental to closing the deals if we use it right. Awesome. So this is the part when I'm gonna kind of talk about different disciplines in a more specific way. PR goal, in a nutshell, in a wide sense, is that by the time prospects engage with your marketing materials, OBD sales team, they've likely already been influenced by your PR efforts. That's in ideal world. And I think first up is BD. So yeah, those I've heard of you moments at the conferences. That means we are doing our job really well, and that's what we need, right? And that's what we want. PR people can help BD people with kind of laying out that foundation for business. and initiate relationships by involving potential partners in their media outreach, for example. So a couple of tips here. This should be the first one, actually. Share your prospect list with PR for targeted media engagement. We call this account-based PR, where we would basically sit with BD and be like, what is the, our dream partner? What is the customer that we're dreaming to get? And then if we can align PR and BD goals, we can really kind of help with overall business strategy. And I will give you an example. As a PR people, comms people, we do a lot of media relations. So we would talk to press on a daily basis. And very often we get approached and, Coindesk would come to me and be like, hey, Martin, I'm writing about this. I think it's a really interesting issue. Do you know someone who can help me with a perspective or a comment? And if I have that prospect list handy, then I can be like, look, I know you have a warm relationship with those guys. That would be a good way to kind of, keep that lead warm and offer them this as a favor and be like, hey, you guys, I know you specialize in this area. I've seen you talk at the conference about this. Our PR team is speaking to Coindesk. Do you want to be connected? We can help arrange that. We really respect what you do. Isn't that like a nice way of like initiating relationship and like, kind of strengthening that bond? One thing I would say about that is like you really need to make sure that the media opportunity is good, that the journalist isn't like having like a hidden agenda. So I always do this with journalists that I know really well, that I know they friendly, they kind of say what they mean and stuff like that. It's not putting potentially anyone in a tricky situation. And the relationship between BD and that kind of form, it needs to be like adequate as well, right? We don't want to be so like randomly being like, hey, I've got media opportunities for you. But if we are friendly and kind of need that extra nudge, this is how you can how you can do it in a smart way. And you can also kind of flip it on its head and think about marketing campaigns that you can do with your potential partners. I think that's also one that people don't tend to utilize, but it could be really nice. Let's say your company, some of your proposition is about rewards assets, bringing assets on chain, and you want to partner with this reward asset company or facilitator or whatever. We can sit with your marketing team and think about the ways we can kind of align and offer those partners opportunity to plug into our campaign. And that's then can be used by PR in media outreach. And that kind of shows your potential partners that you care about similar issues that they do, that you understand the space they operate in. So, and sometimes aligning on those marketing goals and like running maybe a couple of strategic marketing campaigns can then lead to a business. And similarly to this, if there is a media opportunity, and say my client is perfectly positioned to respond to that media request, I will always ask them, like, is there a partner or anyone else that we could offer as well alongside us? So it would be my client commenting and then potential someone that we want to extend the favor to. And then you can send it to your prospect later, or you are seen and kind of perceived as like, oh, those two being quoted together. I wonder if they work together, or that could be an interesting partnership. So I think that's how BD can utilize PR, and I would invite like anyone in BD to just involve PR a little bit more, like bring them those comms people into those conversations and be like, hey, are we really trying to get that company? PRs are also like ears and eyes of your company. They would flick through coverage, see what's going on, see what people are saying, and that kind of gives you that extra insight can help your BD efforts as well. So I would say, yeah, try and collaborate with PRs and invite them to your meetings, to your when you discuss those kind of your business goals. Marketing, there are 3 key things: storytelling with content, with own content. Here, I would say, PR people are communications experts, and marketers are amazing in writing content, and they're really good with that. But you might utilize your comms experts as well to be like, hey, can you check this in terms of try to edit it and like add some waving our key messages? Is this consistent with like what you see media talk about? Is this language like friendly in terms of like how CoinDesk would describe this issue, or how the blog would like cover those topics? Can we like maybe spin a little narrative so there is like more, if we tweet it, then we get more attention because of like those cosmetic changes? So I would say, yeah, just turn to PRs for those type of things. Campaign prep, I see this a lot. I think marketers are really good with like involving PR people in their campaigns effort. First of all, to determine a launch timing. So we don't want to launch something where there's potentially like another big announcement going on, or like big companies planning something, or there is like a big national event, like just to make sure that our campaign kind of drops where can get all possible attention. But also like for campaigns, if you involve your PR team early, they can literally just make some strategic placement here and there in media to make sure that you kind of set the scene. So we like to call it like, making the market aware of the problem that they have, and then showing them that we happen to have a solution. So before you actually launch your product, like people are actually kind of warmed up into the idea that like, oh yeah, like this is really an issue. Like, wonder who's gonna solve it. And guess what? 3 months later, we drop a product that directly responds to those issues. So it's like a set the scene. And then content distribution, your PRs are like your distribution partners. Marketers, you guys are like developing a lot of content, and you don't want this to sit on the website and be seen only when like someone happens to end up on your website, but you want those things to be distributed widely. PR can slice and dice your content and use it in different media or outreach in creative ways. So always include them. And I would say for big pieces of content like reports or research, you probably want to include them a little bit earlier, just to make sure that the content that you have in mind can be then effectively used or sold to media publications. So think about that when you creating something big that's kind of that you put a lot of budget behind, just so it isn't just a hit and miss. And then sales. Similarly to BD, I would say, I put credibility here because it's nice to be like, we have a proof elsewhere that we are that great, or that our product is that great. We talked about visibility. I think that's for BD like a crucial thing, but for sales, when it's like this last step just to close the door, close this deal, it's like, are they credible? Is anyone else vouching for them? And PR is the top of the sales funnel, right? So we also need to understand that. With sales, I would also say, again, you want to be on the same page with the key messages. You want to involve PR in terms of like, we're trying to push this product. Are there narratives that we can create to build something that makes this product more relevant and stuff like this? And then remember that this consistency I talked about, very often it's, the initial interest sparked by PR can be lost through that sales funnel that we talked about, because we're not consistent in terms of what we are saying. So I read something in CoinDesk and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Let me check them out. go to a website, and then on the website, I'm looking for that confirmation. So I want to see what created that initial spark. Does it correspond with the website? And on the website, I see, oh yeah, that actually, there's more information about what they were saying in that said article. And from there, hopefully, they engage with your sales team, and your salesperson present a perfect pitch that also kind of brings us back to whatever was this first initial spark. And then I think for sales, really important to make sure that you use all the hard work that PR does, right? And include that in your sales pitches, in your email distributions, in your conversations, right? You talk to a prospect and you're like, oh, yeah, that's interesting you say that. Actually, our CEO was on the stage talking about similar issues. We were at Token 2049 in Singapore, and he was a keynote there. That's like PR work, right? You put him on stage, and you want to drop that in conversations. And you also want to make sure that you incorporate and links to articles, clippings, and you kind of you have your sales pitch, and your prospect can see like, oh yeah, they've been featured here and there, but you can easily drop this in conversations as well, and be like, oh yeah, our head of product was actually on the interview earlier today with the blog talking about blah. Like that's a really powerful thing to do, and I think. We easily forget about those things. I'm very conscious of time. Measuring PR impact. This is tricky as well. It's often challenging, but incredibly important that we measure impact of PR and kind of effectively attribute revenue to those efforts. Common mistakes is actually measuring activities, so the number of media placement rather than the outcomes. So while tracking these activities, seeing like, oh, we got 50 mentions versus 20 mentions is helpful. What we really want to do is seeing what impact those activities have on our bottom line, because I can tell you we've seen we've seen many times that one byline or one longer lead, one feature has been a gift that was keep on giving, and we've been seeing our clients sending them screenshots of like LinkedIn messages being like, hey, I've read this, I love this, can we talk? Versus we issued a press release, got 100 press clippings, and guess what? Nothing happened on the back of that, right? Because yes, we did get some like maybe SEO work done, but to be fair, does it spiked in sales? Not really. So it's important to like see, okay, we got 50 engagements from this and 20 engagements from this, but like what you really want to see is like how does it contributed to sales, and like did it help with actually selling something, opening some doors, initiating some relationships. Couple of ways you can do that. You guys probably all know this, but your UTM links, whatever that marketing dashboards you use, you probably want to use UTM links to see how PR drives traffic and leads directly, and sometimes you can see the how the content, how people respond to your content. Look beyond the first touch. So use multi-touch attribution models to see where PR influences decision-making. If it's not the initial contact, it could be that, evergreen content. It could be an interview that you did that kind of was like, oh yeah, wait, I've seen this person at the event and I did this and now I'm hearing this podcast, let me check their website or let me actually tell my boss about it, whatever. So it's not always that first touch. So I want you to kind of remember that and track long-term impact. So not just immediate spikes in the traffic or leads, but how PR activities influence brand perception and sales over time. And the last one is the hardest to look at, but there are a couple of, and you can guys just like take a screenshot maybe of this lovely meme. I think it's very true. It's painful. It breaks my heart. But yeah, those are good questions to ask when you to help you guide your assignment of PR's long-term impact and ensure that you're looking at the kind of right indication and indicators for kind of sustainable growth. So I think this list is pretty helpful. And yeah, we in Web3 as well, right? So our analytics, our dashboards, whatever, like I think in traditional marketing on like traditional industries, they would do like customer surveys, but we have communities, right? And we have community managers who are really, really good creators of kind of being eyes and ears and getting feedback from your communities in terms of like, does it resonate? Is it good? How do people, was it like shareable? Was it well received? Have people like seen PR efforts? Is our messaging resonating? And stuff like that. Cool. And then a couple of like, I guess, key takeaways. PR is the welcome committee. Front line of your sales funnel, setting the stage for future interactions. Yeah, use them, use your comms people. Remember the comms experts, they can help you with language, they can help you with making sure that they're not working in isolation. And sometimes PR can be very like vanity driven, where we are like, look, we are at the front page of this. And salespeople are like, it doesn't mention the product. So we don't want that, right? So we want to like be aligned and be like, okay, can you PR people please focus on something that will help us sell said product, because that's our kind of, we getting in trouble if we don't this quarter. So your your kind of quarterly targets should kind of align with like, hey PR, I know like it's product and it's another Web3 wallet, but can we find a ways to like get creative about this so that it actually helps me. Brand message clarity, I think we've said enough about this, but just get serious about like overall brand message, and make sure people know it and people resonate with it. And whether that's CEO on a stage at ETHWarsaw, or whether you are meeting someone you've never seen before, you should be introducing company in a very similar way. Collaboration is a key. You guys should be closely connected with sales BD, marketing, and PR should be closely connected, and you can have specific departments. You can have no departments. You can be just like one person as well. I know teams like that those superheroes that are all those roles. But yeah, make sure whatever your setup is, you closely connected. And then focus on outcomes. Outcomes, not activities, but review activities to understand what works, right? So we want to know like, oh, is it worth it to pay like this amount of money for setting press release on the wire, or are we better off working on a longer feature and maybe have 3 pieces of coverage per quarter, but they are super impactful versus issuing press release every time we did something and then not seeing any tangible results on the back of that. So yeah, I think that's me done for today. Thank you so much.
Massive round of applause for Martyna. We have time for one question. If you guys want to ask a question, just while Mark's getting set up. Who has a question here? I know you do.
Thank you. So in terms of media, in Web 2, PR is more earned, but I find that in Web 3, most media coverage for upcoming or developing companies is paid. They cannot land it by themselves, and that it's very hard to pitch to journalists for free in that way. So I'm wondering if there's any way to do unpaid press coverage for a growing project with real results, or is it worth trying to land unpaid coverage if it's not a big company? Is it worth putting that PR effort into it, or just something else?
I think it's hard, right? Like when you're just starting out and potentially media, this is the first time media heard of you in your pitch, right? But I don't think it's impossible. And I've been working with a lot of startups, and I think it's down to your pitch and the story that you're trying to say. That's what lands you coverage. It's not, I wouldn't say that Web 2 versus Web 3 is different in terms of like earning the coverage. I think we have a lot of great publications that are, you know, unbiased, and they would take a good story without kind of asking you for money for it, right? And if the story is not big enough and they offer you a paid content, that will always be like a kind of, you know, a disclaimer that this was paid for. But we've seen a lot of like companies who been new to the market and coverage. So I think it's definitely worth doing. But you really need to have a good story to tell.